Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave the Blender, and in this third video, we are working with geometry nodes to build a fully procedural text sign. So open up Blender and let's get started. So let's start with a quadrilateral curve. This will be our basic shape. And let's fillet the curve, so the corners look more realistic. Alright. Now, I will subdivide the mesh because I want to add the possibility to have an arrow sign or a sign that points to the right or the left. So I'm gonna show you what I'm doing here. If I activate it, you see there are some middle points there. I will use one of them to draw an arrow shape. I would just take the point on the right side, and this one is located on x equals half of the width. So just like this, I can take this single point and move it as I want. Now, I'm moving it half of the height, so I always have a 45 degrees angle. You see, it's always the same kind of shape. Good. And here, I will just add a transform geometry node, so I can just rotate this whole thing. So this arrow can be pointing either right or left. For the right side, I would just leave it as it is, and for the left, I'm giving it 180 degrees. Now let's expose the parameters so we can control them. And also this one. That I'm calling arrow direction. Alright, and just like this, we have our basic shape. Let's group it and call it basic shape. Now let's continue with the thickness. I'm gonna fill this curve and extrude the mesh. And this is our thickness value. Alright, let me activate face orientation so we can check it. Now let's join this extruded mesh with our previous face, and we can see the face is not properly oriented. So let's flip this face and we are good to go. Now for the border, we need to extrude the mesh. Only the bottom face If you're a bit lost here, you can check the first video of this series. In that one we explain the basic of this logic for the border. Now, let's scale only the top face, and we have our border. Now, you can see we have a problem, because the border is not even in X and Y. To deal with this, we need to calculate two different scale factors, one for X and one for Y. This would be the formula for the X axis, just like this. And I can just plug it here. Now let's bring this up a little bit, and we see it's looking good. Let's do the same for the y-axis now. I'm gonna copy, change scale to 1, and instead of x I need y. I connect the top, and then the calculation is the same, I just need to use the height. Let's plug it, and now we have a constant border over the whole geometry. We just need to extrude this. And this is our border length. Good. And with this, we are done with the second part, thickness and border length. Now I want something similar on the top face to have a frame, so I will just copy the same logic that we have here, and I will change some parameters here. So we see some mistakes over there. Let's just change here to the top face. Then instead of thickness, I want a new parameter called frame. Something like 0.1. I will change it here as well. And then here the extrusion value, instead of border length, I want thickness. And this is what we have so far. Now let's frame this and call it frame. For the next one, I want to do a strike through in the sign. To do this, we will select some edges and extrude them. Let's add a viewer with an index to check the values. Don't forget to check the attribute text in the viewport overlays to see the actual values in the viewport. These are the indexes of the edges I want to extrude. To do this, I will filter for those indexes. Greater than 355 and less than 359. This is our condition, and now we will extrude these values not on the faces but on the edges, and this is our result. Let's flip the faces, only those we extruded, and now what we will do is move these points to the other corner of the sign. To do this, I need again to check the values. These are the vertex I want to move, and these are the vertex I want to move them to. Now to do this, we will set the position one by one. With a compare node, we will just filter for the index. In this case 240, and we will move it to the position of the index in the other corner. We will sample this index, in this case 175, and just move it there. And you see it was instantly moved. Now let's group this. And call it move to point. This is gonna be our move index value. And this is gonna be our to index. So the first index will be moved to the position of the vertex of the second one. Now we will just copy paste this group and change the values. So we see the result we want. And now we just need to extrude the side of this one. This would be our strikethrough. Let's just give it a realistic value. Half of our thickness, and there we go. Let's add the switch so we can activate and deactivate this feature and bring the mesh we had before. Let's just organize this a little bit. And now we need to implement the logic of the activation and deactivation. So we've used the index mapping. Now this can be a bit dangerous because if there are any changes on the topology of the mesh, then this mapping will not work anymore. This happens in our case if we activate the arrow. So both options cannot go together. To avoid any problems, I would just do like this, end node, and if both are active, what I'm gonna do is just throw an arrow and strikethrough cannot be selected at the same time. Alright, but if the arrow is not selected and the strikethrough is selected, then we can activate our strikethrough. You see, if I activate both, it's not working. Good. Let's group this and call it a strikethrough. Now for the last part, I will just add some text. This is a text sign, so we need some text. I'll bring the string to curves node and just type something in. And I will link the size of the text to two parameters. One, it's gonna be the sign height. So I will divide it by 1.5. And then I will multiply it by the second one, which is gonna be just a scale factor I will expose. Let's call it text scale. And plug all of these in the size socket. Let's change this to center, middle, and midpoint. And now I have the size controlled by the scale and the height. All right. Let's fill the curve of the text and bring it to the surface. To do this, I need to move it in the z-axis, the value of the thickness. Also, I will add these two other sockets for some text offset in case I want to move the text. One in X and the other one in Y. Let's change this to single and plug it. Now we can move our text. Alright. The very last part could be extruding this text, the value of the thickness. Good. This is gonna be our text. Now I'm moving it up the value of the border length so it's laying perfectly on z equals 0. And rotating it 90 degrees. Alright. This is what we have so far, and now we just need to add some posts. To do this, I will join the geometry with a quad, and I will adjust the width and the height of this quad. Let's just change the name to post width and post depth and give it some realistic values. 0.05 and 0.03. Good. This will be the base of our post. And now we need to bring it out of the sign. To do this, we just need to move it in Y, half of the post depth. Post depth divided by 2 in Y, and now it's perfectly placed. Now for the placement in the X axis, I would create a maximum and a minimum value. So the minimum would be the width divided by 4, and the maximum, it's gonna be half of the width minus half of the post width. And with this minimum and maximum value, I would just bring this map range and plug it, this to minimum and this one to maximum. Now this is a bit confusing, but you will see the result right now. We will use a combine node, X, and let's change the position of the quad. Now you see it's there at the end because the value is 1. If we bring it to 0, it's moving to 1/4 of the width. And this is the range I wanted to move in. Let's expose it and call it post position. And now we just need to create the second post. We would just multiply this value by -1. Again, combine node in X, transform, and we will join these two geometries. Plug the original quad in the transform geometry node, and now you see we have two different posts. I would recommend to adjust the post position socket so we can give it a minimum of 0, maximum of 1, and then we can change the subtype to factor. So let's turn this into real posts. I'm gonna fill the curve and extrude it. And this value is gonna be the post height. All right, so let's bring this switch node so I can activate and deactivate these posts. We can hide the unconnected sockets here and call this with post. All right, now we only need to adjust the position of the text sign. And to do this, we will divide the height by 2 and subtract it to the post height. So we have a perfect fit in the position of the text sign. Combine, insert, and there we go. You see it's perfectly placed. Now if we change the post height, the sign moves with it. Now in case the post is deactivated, we would just change this factor to 0 with a switch node. And this easily I can control it. Alright, so this is our final text sign node. And all the parameters we can play with. Now if you like the video, like, subscribe, and don't miss the last part of it, the Python interface, in the next video.